The studio lights of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson glowed softly over the stage that night in 1985. The audience inside the NBC studio was buzzing with excitement. Everyone knew a legend was about to walk through those curtains. Johnny Carson leaned toward the microphone, smiling at the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice warm, "my next guest is a man who helped define the American West on screen. Please welcome the Duke himself, John Wayne." The audience exploded into applause. From behind the curtain emerged the tall, familiar silhouette of John Wayne. His walk was slower than people remembered from the movies, but the dignity was still there. The man who had once charged across deserts and battlefields now moved carefully toward Johnny's desk. Johnny stood up and shook his hand. "Duke, it's an honor to have you here again." John Wayne smiled faintly and sat down. His face showed the strength of a man who had lived a long life, but his eyes carried something deeper that night. Johnny noticed. "You've played cowboys, soldiers, lawmen, heroes that millions of people grew up watching," Johnny said. "But tonight I just want to ask, how are you really doing?" For a moment the audience grew quiet. John Wayne looked down at his hands. "Well, Johnny," he said slowly, "a man spends his whole life playing the tough guy, riding horses, fighting bad guys, saving towns, but life has a funny way of reminding you that you're just a man." The studio became silent. Wayne looked out at the audience. "I've been lucky," he continued. "I got to live a life most people only dream about, but there comes a time when you start looking back instead of forward." Johnny nodded gently. "You thinking about retirement?" Wayne chuckled softly. "No, Johnny, I'm thinking about time." The audience leaned closer. "You see," Wayne said, his voice softer now, "when you're young, you think you've got forever. But one day you wake up, and you realize the trail behind you is longer than the trail ahead." Johnny's smile faded into a thoughtful expression. "Is there anything you wish you done differently?" he asked. Wayne paused for a long moment. "Yes," he finally said. "I wish I had slowed down sometimes. Spent more time with the people I loved instead of chasing the next film, the next role, the next success." Some people in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. Johnny spoke quietly. "You've meant a lot to a lot of people, Duke." Wayne nodded. "And those people meant a lot to me too," he said. He looked straight into the camera now. "You know, a cowboy always rides off into the sunset in the movies, looks real heroic." He smiled gently. "But in real life, it's not about riding away. It's about hopping. You left something good behind." For a moment, no one in the studio spoke. Then the audience slowly stood and began to applaud. Not the loud cheering applause of excitement, but the long, emotional applause of respect. Johnny Carson stood beside him and shook his hand again. "Ladies and gentlemen," Johnny said softly, "John Wayne." And for that brief moment on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, the legendary Duke wasn't just a movie hero. He was simply a man, sharing his heart with the world.